Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, Clayton, Ruby, and Stephanie, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor and student. So, I have three things today, and mostly towards a new friend on Facebook that I think is living in a country that speaks Spanish, and I'm always so honored when someone tries to get what I say in my language when it's not their own language. Which is true now as well, of course. But it's in the fact that I've accepted some new friends on Facebook that when I go to Facebook after here on YouTube, it could be their first encounter with me making a broadcast, and so. So, my number one topic is a quick presentation, then beyond the bubble, then how do we teach better Pilates? Those are my three topics for today. And a quick presentation is based on, all right, if this is your first time watching, and you don't have a lot of patience, and you want to take whatever it is and then go on from there, don't blame you, then I have a presentation that I can offer, and you can say this too, of course. I have a presentation, and it'll cost this much to see the presentation. And what is the presentation? It's your explanation. It would be my explanation of two things: CT and MMP. So here you are, you've just met me, and you've never been to or been introduced to a gondola ride that goes up the gondola and takes a look at a point of view and then comes back down. You pay to get a point of view, because that's all that CT and MMP are points of view. Okay, both of which I consider to be identifications. But let's come to this five things. The presentation. Oh, all right. I should make better notes. So if you just got here, I should make better notes. And you want to fast track yourself into this point of view or this information, right? The thing to do that I recommend, it means spending money, but not that much, maybe too much, but it's best that I can do to make it accessible to you, is go to udemy.com, UDEMY, and download the course on how to survive as a Pilates instructor. That's the title, How to Survive as a Pilates Instructor. Now the reason I'm recommending you do that is not for the course because it's just video clips explaining or saying these five things. More importantly in the course is a PowerPoint presentation that you can download to your phone or tablet or your laptop, and then project it from there if you want, as a means of being a presenter So right off the bat, you're trying to say, what is it I'm presenting? And I'm reflecting back to you that what I have for you is a presentation. And my number one title is a quick presentation. So that means a quick presentation of these 5 things that make up the point of view where I'm coming from. Three of those 5 things come out of Joe's book. So, in terms of connecting with you, if you're interested in Pilates, by all means, I hope you already have a copy of Joe's book. I would say have one in English and have one in whatever is your native language. But be able to compare the English to whatever other language you're viewing it through. And that's because Joe wrote it in English. And so the first thing in Joe's book that's part of this presentation is the sentence in Joe's book that goes like this: Contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. So you don't have to take my word for it. Go find it. If you've already found it and you're already well aware of that, that's something you have connection to as a presenter, and you'll be able to add to that whatever point of view you want to do with that. And then in the very next paragraph, Contrology develops the body uniformly. I think I got that right. Sometimes I always wonder if I'm just right on. Contrology develops the body uniformly. Now, here we make a bridge, I hope, because in what I consider to be pretty universally perceived as Pilates, as a characteristic of it, which may not be the case anymore, or more so, I don't know. The notion that when you do Pilates, it's a whole body exercise. Whole body. And to me, and this number 2 of the presentation I'm making for you is that Contrology develops the body uniformly is the basis of Pilates being a whole body workout, because Joe specifically states the means through which, well, he just says these words, you make of them what you wish. Contrology develops the body uniformly, comma, and more to the sentence, but for the sake of this presentation, the only thing that matters is the establishment that Contrology develops the body uniformly, and hopefully that makes a common foundation between your sense of Pilates being whole body and my sense of Pilates being whole body. Now the third thing, right? All coming straight out of Joe's book. Straight out of Joe's book. I'm dealing with a wrapped around version of the original. And I want to show you the original cover of Joe's book. This, right? This. Okay, so this is the foundation of Michael Miller Pilates. The point of view of Michael Miller Pilates comes exclusively from this book, specifically from 3 things. We talked about the definition, we talked about the statement of the means, or the promise of what you get because of how you do it, meaning whole body, right? And the third thing is what? Well, if I'm just in the book, then what I ought to do is just go to the table of contents, right? And going to the table of contents, there is what I can show in one page, right? There is the list of exercises, the choreography, the order of the exercises. So contrary to popular pretense that Pilates is just exercises that you pull out of a toolbox and apply to an issue in a body, the whole mentality ignores the choreography and the meaning of the choreography and the grammar of the choreography. More importantly, because without mirroring or resonating with the grammar of the original work, how can you hope to maintain any of whatever it is that it is? See, that makes a... Okay, I don't mean... I said a brief... You can always go deeper and take on a different point of view, or higher and take on less detail in a point of view. The number 3 that is part of the presentation is that there is a sequence of exercises that comes out of Joe's book. The hundreds, the roll up, the roll over, leg circles. All the way up to standing, or all the way to the end, at which point you're standing, whereas at the beginning you're lying flat. Laying flat? Depends on how you look at it, I guess, or express it. Anyway, you're flat. So, the exercises and the order that they're in is a reflection of reality and as such a reach for an ideal perhaps the ideal in which we live, and the ideal just simply being 3D space. 3D. You know, how much space does the body have access to, and how much access does it have to it, and how quickly and easily can it move through it. So, number 3, the mat is the method. The mat is the method. Whatever thinking might want to conjure up as something more significant or better, Joe makes a complete statement in his choreographed program, his routine, his sequence. It makes a statement all its own and completely. That's just my opinion, and you have your own experience, of course, something that you can feel for yourself, as the criteria that I use for evaluating different points of view. So new friends, now those three things come straight from Joe. So if you have any history or background in Pilates that goes toward anything meaty and in historical significance, those are the three things that you get to the MMP point of view. So there's CT and there's MMP. But we haven't talked about CT yet. And that's number 4, is talking about core new tension, which is just oppositional rotation between axes. Okay? It's the ability to imagine in your own body, you're rotating in your shoulders one way and curling around your ears the other and pulling away from an unwanted kiss in order to line the ears up over the shoulders. I refrain from using that image of pulling away from an unwanted kiss, but got told by others that that was what worked, and don't sidestep that one for any reason, because it captures the energy of the effort. So that was worth going there just to get to that conclusion. So the number 4 thing is just a definition of what you call doing this. Okay, that's core new tension. And you can do it not only between the ears and the shoulders, but actually happens between the shoulders and the hips, and reverses again at the knees, the ankles, and the metatarsals. Okay? Use the word metatarsals, because translating the ball of the foot in French takes a large paragraph. Metatarsals as an anatomical label is universal. Talking about language again. The reason I say we're talking about 2 things, so Joe, and then 2 things for me instead of just like 1 thing, is that 1 is biomechanical. It's an identification. Okay, so CT and MMP are what when you go from here up to look around, you're looking at 2 things. An explanation for 2 things. An explanation for CT, which is number 4, is that Michael Miller, me, presumes to identify oppositional rotation between axes in the body, and I'm the one that calls it core new tension. Okay, so CT is a made-up label for a type of dynamic in the body that I attribute to a tension as a result, and it's within that tension that you get 2 things from core new tension. You get a sensation of alignment, and you trigger more uniform usage, more uniform engagement. You develop the body more uniformly. And in the making of the effort to do that, in reaching into core new tension, I think it has to be, because that's the most efficient way to move the load through space. The load being your body. Right? Number 2. Oh wait, I was working on this whole quick. So that's core nutention. It's biomechanical. It's a made-up name for a sensation I can create on my own, where I can feel alignment, and I also feel lighter in space because my body is more uniformly engaged. I'm more dynamic in this space that I'm swimming through. The definition. Where does the definition come from? It comes from these 3 things. Based on those 3 things, Joe's definition, Joe's promise, and Joe's sequence, you get to at least a theory about there being an ideal within Joe's original work. So it's my theory that there's an ideal within Joe's original work, and the evidence that I base that theory on are the 3 things we've talked about. The definition comes from those 3 things, and the definition is uniform eccentric loading. So like it's uniform, it's eccentric, and we're talking about loading, flowing through progressive patterns of movement. Okay. Now, if the sign language is a distraction to you, I'm sorry. As a student of mine, I totally encourage you to duplicate my sign language and not just improv everything. If we can resonate some of what some thought has gone into, and then you expand from there. But as a presenter, sign language lets you cross all other languages. So that's the 5th thing, the definition of MMP. What is MMP? It's a point of view of Pilates. It's just one point of view out of as many people as there are, because we all have our own point of view. So the original work of Joe comes in like a picture on a digital camera, where you can see what it is, but it's fuzzy until more information loads into the picture, and wow, things are much clearer. Okay. So you go from contrology as complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit, Joe's definition, to the MMP definition, I guess I would say contrology is, but I'm not used to saying it that way. I just give the definition without a preamble. Perhaps I should call it Pilates is, because the word we're talking about is that, and as such, this is a point of view coming from that as the mother of 10,000 things. Uniform eccentric loading, flowing through progressive patterns of movement. When you know Joe's definition, and you know an ideal definition, those are 2 great points to navigate by Doesn't have to be where you are, but certainly what is Joe, his original work, is Pilates. So that was my quick presentation. I don't know how to come out of that right away. How to work on that. People will either get it or not, want to get away from that whole point of view altogether. But what are you looking for? As a presenter, you want to make a quick presentation of those 5 things and let people filter themselves about whether or not they're interested in learning more from your ability to be a teacher, like thinking and doing workshops. And they may want to leap all the way into your role as an instructor and their effort in it. But knowing that the presenter, you're just going out to point out 2 things. And those 2 things are identifications. One biomechanical and one a point of view of Pilates. It's hard not to deliver a definition of Cornu before the definition of the ideal within Pilates according to MMP. So the MMP point of view, based on a theory that there's an ideal within Joe's original work, most specifically his book, and those 3 pieces of evidence, his definition is promised in a sequence. So perhaps, see, what I never made a connection to in the 5 things was how MMP views Joe's definition. And so Joe's definition is contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. The MMP point of view takes that to mean contrology is complete coordination of being, thinking, and observing. And that's where it becomes very real and very state-of-the-art physics. So core new tension has a lot of biomechanical in it, you think? And for a hydraulic purpose. And so when I write Beyond the Bubble, which is the next thing, okay, so I have to move on. But that's a quick presentation. And the real kicker is that spirit equals observing, turns into an experience, and that the profession of MMP is that you're in pursuit of that experience. While performing the choreography of the mat as purely as you can. So if there's no way the fragility of your client can do any of the actual work, meaning the original mat work, then at least mirroring from within the mat work, flexion, extension, side bending, rotation, and torsion as a progressive pattern right, resonates to the example set in Joe's choreography. I have to move on. Beyond the bubble. Okay, so the bubble that I'm talking about is the bubble of a point of view that looks at Pilates as a tradition and lineages and hierarchy and as being what it is, as though there's not enough of itself that warrants paying any attention to. And I think over time, that big needle of what is Pilates is coming to point to exactly what it is, and to be appreciated for that, and Joe be revered for that. It's Joe's method. Just Joe's method. All I'm doing is staring at the idealness within it. And to the extent that MMP has a point of view, it's meant to help you see whatever idealness that you see in it. If you're listening to me and you get what I'm talking about, or you get more than what I'm talking about, and you're way smarter than me, that's great. But what I'm pointing to is, in the Pilates culture, the prevalence of a point of view that is in some way dimensional and therefore limiting, like a bubble. Understanding CT and MMP puts you outside of that bubble, or beyond that bubble, or transcendent to that bubble. Why am I talking about this? I think because it's difficult to appreciate the truth of the matter when there's so much chatter, which is the tsunami of Pilates passion, and had brought me to inviting you, if you're still listening, and if you had to go, I'm sorry you had to leave, but the 5 things is a presentation that explains CT and MMP. Go download the course. To get access to the PowerPoint presentation, and then in being able to make that, or just having that in your hand, gives you access to the synthesis of the point of view to the clarity it's gotten to so far, if there's any, which there might not be. 3. So my question is, how do we teach better Pilates? So I didn't say, how do we teach better Pilates instructors? My question is, how do we teach better Pilates? What makes Pilates better? What makes the difference in Pilates between people, between instructors? Is there something of what they know about Pilates that makes them different? Or is it something about other influences that make them different? And you say, oh yes, well of course, it's both. Well, to which extent and towards what? So my summary comment went to recognize that we are teaching or instructing. Well, either way, recognize that we're instructing and recognize that we're teaching, and in both of those I assume there is purpose. And you're lending your sense of purpose to their sense of purpose so that ultimately they can take over for themselves. And so my question, how do we teach better Pilates? The focus is on Pilates, not how do we do better with this or that or incorporate other things into whatever it is Pilates is assumed to be. In that assumed to be, how do we teach better Pilates? What makes better Pilates? So my closing comment, I guess, was recognize that we are teachers. Right. What does that mean? Life can't live forever. Read between the lines. See behind the curtain. Evaluate points of view. Ask for more than you could possibly believe someone would give you. Direct your thinking. Geist.